everybody. Welcome to the Gabe and Shey podcast, episode
5. Week 5.
Fife, if you're a pilot. So it's Fife. We don't say the V. I don't know why. It's something about if you say 5, it sounds like something else. I can't think of anything that it would sound like, though, honestly. So episode Fife. All right. Anyways.
Squirrel. Yeah. We haven't even started the episode yet.
Hey, listen, first off, I just wanted to say, from both of us, I believe, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. There are more views than we thought. We were expecting 5 or 6, and we got just a little bit more than that. And it really does mean a lot to us that we're able to share our story and how we got to where we are. I don't know if you want to say anything.
The amount of feedback that we're getting is amazing. The good, bad, and the ugly. We appreciate all of it. So it's just been really fun to hear what everybody has to say. And we're very grateful for you guys watching and caring enough to tell us what you think.
Tell us what you think. And I'm going to tell Shey what I think right now. When you move that mic just a little closer to your mouth there, just to,
like this.
There you go. Nailed it. There you go. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. And so one of the things we noticed a lot of things from the last 4 podcasts. And so we're trying to make some corrections on this one, and hopefully they're good ones and people can get along with them pretty good. But yeah, let's get into it. Right.
Mm-hmm. This just feels like the mic and I are a little too close.
Yeah, well,
we really know each other well.
I'm not jealous, so it's okay. Let's talk about one of the things that I talked to my kids about, and it's something that I think really changed my perspective on life. Now, you always go back to knowing what I wish I knew what I knew now. Wait a minute.
I wish I knew then what I know now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. See?
Hindsight.
Yeah, she wins. I wish I knew then what I knew now, right? And you can't go back, but you got to understand. You have to try to figure out, okay, well, what am I going to do with what I know now? Am I just going to hang on to it, or am I going to do something with it? And if I were to go back to my older self, all right, and start talking
younger
to
self?
them, dang it! If I were to go back to
I know what you meant.
Younger self, you are absolutely correct. No, if I were
the old me.
The old me, yeah. That is what I meant. Yeah, thank you. If I were to go back to the younger me and give him some advice, okay? First, I'd give him a big hug. Like, just the biggest hug in the world. And I have a story about that I'll share later about my son, Jaden, in regards to going back in time. But in the meantime...
If I got back to younger me, I'd give me a swift kick in the ass. And then I'd give me a big hug.
Yeah, it probably would be deserved for both of us. But I would say, listen, you're going to go on this learning journey, okay? And I'm going to guide you. And I'm going to guide you with 4 simple things. And these are the 4 simple things that I want you to focus all of your being on. Because if you do, your whole life's going to change. Everything about your life that you thought was bad is going to go by the wayside, and nothing but good things will start happening to you. You're still going to deal with challenge just like everybody else. However, you're going to look at challenge differently. And here's the 4 things. Number 1, learn about human behavior. Human behavior is paramount to understanding what other people do and why they do it. If you have no idea why people do things, then you're just going to constantly judge them, right? You're just going to be, You're going to throw judge all over them based on your references, not your understanding of human behavior. It's going to be based on how I see the world. Wait a minute. I parallel park like this. Why are they going this way, right? Yeah, there's a weird
listen, parallel parking is a hot topic. So there is a right way to do that.
According to the DOT, there is a right way to do that. We're not going to get onto that in this podcast today. But human behavior is such an important thing. We're going to start there today. But I'm just going to talk about these 4. The second thing that... I would tell my younger self to learn would be communication, how to communicate with other people. And with communication, understanding human behavior comes first, because otherwise you're not even going to know what to communicate. You'll be communicating only your references, not the perceptions of other people. And so that human behavior element comes first, communication comes second. Following that, I would say to learn relationships. And this one was a big one for me because growing up, I kind of didn't have a lot of friends. I gained some friends later, but most everyone hated me. I was the second most made fun of kid in the whole school all the time. And so I didn't really have that element of it. So learning about relationships, many people learn it through life, right? They just go through learning relationships, but they didn't do the human behavior thing first. So they might be seeing relationships differently than they should be. Finally, as almost like just an add-on to this, to live a most prosperous life, I would say number 4 would be to learn finance. Understand economics, understand how money works, understand how humans and money work. And, if you're going to read about human behavior and then communication, then relationships, money is going to be easy to understand after all of that.
Yeah. And I just had a conversation with somebody about this a few days ago, that it's not about learning about money because you're so greedy for it or you want so much money, but without money, we can't fuel whatever projects we would like to do. We can't fuel servicing our community or our family or whatever it is that you're trying to do with your life to build that legacy that you're going to leave behind for everybody else. Unfortunately, we just can't do it without money. No. And so it's not greed. It's how else are you going to accomplish your goals?
Yeah. Greed is the love of money, not the love of what money does. And so we're not talking about greed in any way. We're talking about understanding finance. And then also, how do we use that, like you said, to help more people? Because right now, I can only help so many people because of how much money I have. Mm-hmm. If I had a lot more money, I promise you I'd be in front of a lot more people. And my goal is we build people. Yeah. We build people can't happen unless I fund it, right? And so that's something that we're learning how to fund that. How are we going to fund that, make that happen? And fun it, right?
That's right.
I have to be fun or she'll divorce me. That's the truth. But today's topic is going to be about human behavior. We're going to start there because this is one of the most transitional points in my life. And I'm not going to speak for Shey. I'm going to let her kind of talk about her end of this. But we're going to talk about the gap, okay? Mm-hmm. And there's a good book out there called The Gap and the Gain. This is not the gap that I'm talking about, okay? So for those of you out there that have read The Gap and the Gain, it's an absolutely fantastic book. This is about a different gap. This gap is about the gap between stimulus and response. And if there are a couple words...
Shoot, I had a sneeze and then it went away.
Oh, I hate that. If there are a couple words, stimulus and response, do me a favor, Shey, can you describe stimulus and response just to make it a little easier to understand? How would you describe stimulus and response? What does that mean to you?
To me, stimulus is something is happening in your environment. Something is happening to you from around you, right? So the light is shining in your eyes. Your response is what you do because of that. So in my case, if the light is shining in my eyes, I'm probably going to close my eyes and turn my head. So that's the stimulus, the light, and then my response is the eyes.
I couldn't have said that better myself. That's perfect. Okay, so if stimulus means that our senses, we have 5 senses, right?
What are those 5 senses, Teacher Gabe?
Hearing, sight, taste, touch, and smell, right? And we have, did I miss one? I feel like I missed one. And seeing, hey, look at that.
Sight. No, you said sight. Yeah.
Great, I said sight. So we have the 5 senses. That's what captures stimulus. We only get stimulated through those senses. Then it goes into our body through these miraculous alien or spiritual, whatever you think it is, way. It gets to our brain, and then our brain sends another message back to the body to respond. But there is a gap there. And typically with people, that gap is non-existent because we mostly live off of habits, right? I mean, we mostly do things automatically because our subconscious has been programmed so long by everything around us that the brain kind of wants us to be automatic. Right? And so if stimulus happens and we automatically respond, I don't know about you guys, but some of my responses, especially back then,
I'd be in so much trouble.
Oh my God, it was garbage. Absolute garbage. Like I would say things like especially even with just Shey and I, she would say something and my automatic response would be garbage. And I would hurt her.
And even if it wasn't garbage, it was an immediate firing back.
Yeah.
Rather than considering what the other person was saying, taking it in for a second, processing it and going, okay. And then formulating a purposeful response to it.
What Shey was just describing was building a purposeful gap. Okay. What she's saying is that if you do that and you actually build a gap between stimulus and response, chances are your response is probably going to be not as garbage as it would have been if you just directly responded, right? And so, what's your take on that from just like your past? I'm sure you were really great at producing a gap, weren't you?
Totally. In fact, such a gap that the person wouldn't even be done speaking, and I would just go ahead and
anti-gap, like reverse gap. It'd be a vacuum, not a gap. I got you.
Yeah. I actually have a fun little story. It's not about me specifically, but a conversation I just had with one of my sisters. She has a young daughter who had an issue at school with a teacher situation that she didn't quite agree with, right? And she came home, and the daughter's like preteen, 11, 12, 13, and immediately started typing out an email, right? Saying every thought that she had about this situation. And she's a little bit sassy, right? So she's just laying it all out. And before she hit the send button, she called her dad over and she goes, "Hey, can you just take a look at this email and make sure that, I expressed what I felt like I wanted to express?" And he read it and he says, "Okay, you can't send that. First of all, because you said everything you wanted to say. So really what you need to do, please, is take a breath, wait an hour, wait 2 hours, wait until tomorrow morning, then rewrite the email and then press send." And it was just, it's a good reminder to all of us that, you can't always just fire back whatever it is that's going through your...
Well, you can, and people do. However,
you can.
We're insinuating that maybe that might not be the best way to go about things. And
sure.
And, tying it into some of the stuff that, like in our lives, right? One of the things that changed for me in regards to why I wanted to rewrite my script was because I actually, because we owned a videography company, we did a lot of videography. And in one of the instances, I was directing and someone was shooting behind the scenes stuff. And in that behind the scenes stuff, I got to see how I directed other people. And I was mortified. I was absolutely mortified. And people would say things and I would just fire right back. And I was a dick. I really was.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big words here today. Yeah. And I thought that,
you're fiery today.
I just thought that I was being nice. And that's the rub right there, right?
Not necessarily nice, but you were in business mode, right? In work mode.
Yeah.
You felt like you were just getting the job done.
That's right. That's right. And by seeing that though, I got to witness me. I mean, think about what I just said right there. I got to witness me. And so typically speaking, when we become self-aware, we realize what we're doing. We're no longer operating on a script. We're operating by actually looking at us. We're watching what we do. We're watching what we say. We're watching what we hear. All of those things we start to take control of or don't, whatever. But in this case, I did that and I vowed right then and there. I was like, no way am I going to be that guy. I am not going to continue being that guy. There's no way. Especially when I thought I was so nice. Like, I'm serious. Like, I thought I had the biggest heart in the world. And I'm watching this and I'm like, that is not who I think I am. Mm-hmm. And so it was a gift to me, right? It was a gift to me. And so I got to be able to change that. And one of the very first lessons I learned was about the gap between stimulus and response, and that I actually had control over my responses. Should I just pay attention to it? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
And this was one of the first things that actually took us to the accident, right? Like when I talk about my personal development journey, my purposeful development journey, okay? One of the things that I talk about, I guess, if you want to put it like that, I think about it when that it happened for a reason, that I started that journey just to make sure that I was a rock and I was a solid foundation for everybody during that accident. And I like to think that because it kind of gives me a little bit of a kind of a champion mindset, or maybe even a hero mindset. And but it wasn't up to me to become the hero. Something happened, something ordained it, right? Something made it happen. And whether it's the universe or God or whatever you believe, in my case, I think it was God. And it was just given to me. Okay. It was just given to me. And I took it. And I got to use it during that. But not only did I get to use it, now I get to bring it to other places. And so getting out of hand here. I'm sorry. Let's talk about the gap again and where did you first hear about it?
Probably Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. Although right around the same time I was reading, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Sure.
And
great book.
And I had been hearing about that book for years and had resisted reading it because my perception of the title alone was super manipulative.
Wait a minute. You judged a book by its cover?
Believe it or not, by its title, technically. Believe it or not. And I'm so very grateful that I convinced myself to read the book, because honestly, the book is the exact opposite of manipulation. It talks about being more genuine, more authentic, a gentler way to be yourself. I'm not even explaining it properly. However, in that book, there's a story about, I think it's a husband and wife, and they're out to dinner with a group of friends, and the husband is telling the table, right? There's quite a few people with them. He's regaling the table with one of his favorite Bible stories, except that he's getting the details wrong, right? And the wife knows this. She hears like he's saying the wrong name or the wrong place, the wrong situation. And in the book, it talks about how she so badly wanted to like kick him under the table and be like, you're telling it wrong. But that gap, right? She let him tell his story, and she didn't correct him because she realized in that moment that she could have corrected him, and subconsciously she would have felt good about herself for saving him from incorrect information. She would have felt really good about herself for even knowing that it was incorrect information and being able to share it with the rest of the table, right?
What if he needed correction?
Right. And then she realized that what really would have happened is she may have embarrassed him. She may have shut down his excitement over sharing something with others. And so that gap, I know it's not exactly what we're talking about, but to me, that falls into that category. That gap, she just chose to be like, oh, great story, honey, instead of that first gut reaction of what she wanted to do.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good example. Because, well, I would say it's a good example of maybe, I don't know, that was kind of a reaction of hers to kind of kick him under the table, right?
No, she didn't though. She wanted to.
Oh, excuse me.
She wanted to kick him under the table.
Yeah,
right.
Thank you.
But she stopped herself.
Right. The gap, right? She actually listened to the gap. And so here's the thing. This kind of ties a little bit into willpower, because frankly, becoming aware, being able to witness yourself, becoming aware is something that doesn't just happen. It's not like Skynet. Okay. It's not like, AI becomes aware. This is close. I know. Don't worry, everybody.
It's a whole other tangent.
Yeah, it's a whole other thing. But it is. It's not like Skynet. They don't just become aware. It takes time. It takes practice, and it takes time. Sometimes you'll be aware. Sometimes you won't. But if you consistently think about, I want to be aware. I can be aware. I believe that I am aware, and you start, funneling that kind of information into your psyche, you will become more aware over time. And so in order to even get started, you have to be aware that you've been stimulated. Sometimes you can get a stimulus, respond, and forget that you even responded to a stimulus. And there's so much tied into this. Blame, denial, all of those things are tied into this. But if you get into that response mode where it's automatic, now we're talking about something a little bit different. We're talking about habits. We're talking about automation. And believe it or not, there is 100% a way to rewrite your automations. And here's the thing. Here's the thing that people don't tell you. They don't teach you this in school. They don't teach you this in college. You might get it in a philosophy class, but typically people look at philosophy classes as hoo-hoo or not worth anything, right? And so here's the deal. You don't get taught how to script your mind. You don't get taught how to script your subconscious. We are all products of our upbringing, everything that we've learned, and then our environment of where we're at, okay? Every single one of us, our brains, our subconscious is products of those things. So if you have certain perceptions of reality, I promise you that they're not yours unless you've gone in and purposely rewrote your scripts to challenge how you believe the world should be. Not based on what the news says, not based on what your mom says, but based on you actually taking control of that. Most people don't do that. Matter of fact, it's between 1% and 5% of the population actually take control of their subconscious.
According to recent studies.
Yeah. Well, it just so happens that 1% to 5% is also the wealthiest in the world. And so it's just like, I call it, so people talk about the zombie apocalypse. All right, here we go.
Oh, no.
Yeah, here we go.
Wait, I still have more stories to tell.
We're already in a zombie apocalypse because anybody that's acting on automation where they're not taking control of their actual program, they're a zombie. They're eating, they're consuming everything that comes in, and they think that they're actually making it into something else, and they're not.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to like completely cut you off with my breath there. I was thinking that, so our next episode is going to actually be covering that a little further in detail.
It is. Yeah.
I have a few thoughts about that as well.
No, for sure.
I know as far as the gap with reaction and versus response, reactivity versus response, for me, when I first heard that concept, and I think it actually was 7 Habits, not How to Win Friends. But he was talking about
7 Habits is where I first heard it.
A radio DJ, right? Who got a call in from a listener or a letter from a listener.
Yeah.
And it was a scathing letter. And he was like, he took it personal, right? He took it to heart. He went home and he wrote back a letter. And then he didn't mail it right then. He waited until the next morning and then reread it and realized, oh, I don't need to send this. In fact, sending this letter as it is would be highly detrimental, could be highly detrimental. And when I read that, I remember thinking that I was very, very reactive to a lot of things in my life, our conversations, my environment, whatever. And I have been purposefully working over the years then there's so many times that I want to fire back something during a conversin, you know, and not bad or ugly, just sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, right? But sometimes I just want to fire something back. And I made a little agreement with myself, and I fail all the time, but the agreement was that if I felt that strong of an emotional response to something specifically between you and I, but in other situations too, that I would physically walk away from the situation, right? Give it some time, that hour or the next day, depending on what the situation is, and then come back later when I wasn't feeling emotional about it and possibly bring it up again. Here's the interesting thing though. 90% of the time, I don't feel the need to bring it up again.
Isn't that interesting?
Because it was just my emotional reaction to it. It wasn't a true response.
Yeah. And Shey and I have gone through this. We've been practicing this for quite a long time now. And I think that if anything, this practice has gotten us so much closer. I feel like her and I laugh together more than any other couple I know. I feel that, do you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we don't spend a ton of time around other couples, but yeah, we do laugh a lot.
We do laugh a lot.
We laugh a lot.
We laugh all the time. Anyway. So listen, the goal should be to put a gap in between, you know, when someone says something to you, don't just punch them. Think about it. And don't get me started on the physical violence part. That's a whole nother level of emotional maturity. Mm-hmm. This is all about emotional maturity, everyone. So if you don't think there's room for a gap, that's the time to create a gap, because the fact is there is room for gap. And if somebody stimulates you, the very first thing you could do is like Shey said, even if it hurts the conversation, walk away. If you need to do that in order to create space, walk away. Now, the other person might try to stop you from walking away.
Just be like, listen, I need a minute, you know, and I think one of the things you and I did, and I don't remember this definitively, but I think we actually laid down like new boundaries. You know, like, hey, we're both learning and growing here. So these are some of the things I am wanting to do moving forward. Yeah. And we both did that. And so one of those things was that we gave each other the flexibility. We gave each other permission to say, I need time. Yeah. I'm going to walk away for a few. Can we come back to this?
Yeah. I used to, before this journey, get very mad at that.
Me too.
Yeah. Like, no, we need to solve this now.
Right now.
Or the world is going to end and you just don't know. the world's going to end and everybody's going to hate everybody and we're going to get divorced if we don't solve this right now. It's that important. And the fact of the matter is it's not even close.
No. And when you're stuck in that cycle, you're not solving anything.
Right. Now, the true goal is going to be not just to create a gap there, because actually that is, what do they call that? Rookie level. Okay. So rookie level is creating a gap. After you create the gap, but once you start doing some rescripting, what you're going to do is you're going to create new automatic responses that you've created. That way, your brain can actually handle some of the tough stuff without you thinking about it. And so level 3 is going to be you starting to create those automations yourself. And I feel like I've got a lot of those. And one of those is with gratitude. Like now gratitude happens so fast for me that it's unbelievable. And I'd like to share a story about that so fast gratitude. This one's pretty fun. So we're, two things. So if you guys don't know, I'm a pilot. Okay. So I get to fly.
I like how you looked at the whole audience. Even though, yes.
Crying. Thanks for calling me out. Thanks for bringing a gap into that there.
See that, but he addressed the entire audience.
They did see it. We're going to be on the same screen. All right. So
sorry.
See, she just kicked me under the table, everybody, if you didn't notice. That was her story, and she just kicked me. That's okay. So we had we're checking over the plane. At the very beginning, me and my flight instructor, he's checking over the plane. I'm checking over the plane. And I get in the cockpit and he's got the cowling open and he's looking at the engine and he goes, "Hey, turn on the master switch." And I said, "Okay, no problem." And I flipped on the master switch. He's like, whoa, turn it off. And I turned it off. And he's like, "There was a fire." And suddenly, literally, I go, "Yes." I like freaked out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "That happened on the ground." We learned that on the ground. What a great thing to be grateful for.
Rather than.
Oh, he was blown away. He was like, "Why are you so happy?" Yeah, then in the air.
Right.
Like it's smoking from the engine. We're in the air. We're flying around. We got to land.
Yeah.
Nobody. The second, no. That's a great example of an automatic response that I've created because of gratitude. Mm-hmm. And another one was we were about to take off, head into Lincoln, Nebraska from Ames. And we were going down the runway and the engine cowling, again, the flap that covers over the engine flipped up and it flipped up and bent all out of shape. And I had to, cut power and slam on the brakes and pull off. And again, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that was so amazing that happened now and not in the air." And both those are little plane stories, but it's just an automatic gratitude. How fast can you find gratitude inside of a situation?
Right.
What a good automation that might be. Maybe. I don't know. I'm really grateful that she said that I looked at the audience there a minute ago. Hey there, everybody.
No, that was just awesome because you're really good at addressing people in a room. And so it was just funny because, you addressed everyone in the room.
I'm so good at it. So, all right, everybody, that's all the time that we've got for today. Again, I really want to say thank you. This one was a little bit more, I'm trying to help you guys understand how we were able to go through a lot of the challenges that we've gone through. And this was one of the very beginning things that we learned. And if you want a great book recommendation, it's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And
again, don't judge a book by its title. Sounds super boring. This book is so good.
It's so good.
He shares a lot of personal stories. He shares a lot of stories from clients.
Yep.
It really is an incredible book, whether you're listening to it on Audible. If you're listening to it, it is very dense. There's a lot of information to absorb. I also read the physical copy as well, but then I re-listened to it on Audible just to catch.
I'd recommend listening to it. Covey actually authors it himself, or voices it himself before he passed. And it's just an absolutely fantastic book. It changed my life. Hands Down, it changed my life. I ended up listening to it like 5 times.
Same down.
Same down. All right. Hey,
that's what I get for interrupting. You said hands down. I said same down.
Yeah, it works. Again, thank you for everything. Thanks for even just taking a few minutes and watching these things. Hopefully you can gain something from this and put it into practice yourself. And you know, if you do put this into practice and you struggle with it, or it just doesn't come naturally, well, it shouldn't come naturally, by the way. But if it doesn't come naturally, or you're really just kind of struggling with it, don't give up. You know what? Reach out. Just be like, I can't. Don't say I can't. That's such a shit word.
No, I've actually had a few people, message me on Facebook. I have an Uncle Dave, who's been incredibly encouraging and supportive. And he's reached out to us personally. So, if you are struggling in any way, or you want a little bit more insight from either one of us, feel free to reach out. We would love to chat.
By the way, Uncle Dave did not reach out because he's struggling. I just wanted to point that out. Okay. The context here, everyone. Yeah. So
no, he had awesome insights for us.
He did. Actually, yeah. And one of them was, don't wave your hands around so much. Thanks, Uncle Dave. All right, everybody. This has been the Gabe and Shey podcast, episode 5. Episode 5. Take care.
Bye.